Okay, it says that the lake will be fully covered on June 30th. So what percentage will be covered on June 29th? Well, remember, it doubles every day. So on June 29th, if it was 100% fully covered on the 30th, right, if we come down to this diagram here, if it's fully covered, the whole thing on the 30th, right, then half of it will be covered on the 29th because it doubles each time. Okay, so that's part A. Part B is on June 26th, a pedestrian who walks by the lake every day warns that the lake will be completely covered soon. Her friend just laughs. Why might her friend be skeptical? Well, let's think about it. On June 30th, the whole lake is covered, right? The day before, though, only half of it was covered. The day before that, only a quarter of it was covered. The day before that, only an eighth of it was covered. The day before that, only a 16th of it was covered. And on the 26th, only 1/16 of the lake was covered. So this is how much was covered on the 26th. If we want to do it this way, 100% is covered on the 30th, 29th is the 50%, 28th is 25%, 27 is 12.5%, and 26 is 6.25%. So very small percentage of the lake is covered only 5 days before, or 4 days before it's going to be completely covered. So somebody walking by would think, what are you, crazy? How that's not going to be able to cover it by the 30th. But it does, so it's counterintuitive. Part C, on June 29th, a cleanup crew arrives at the lake and removes almost all the algae. How well does this solve the problem? Not very well at all, because even if you start with 1%, on the next day there's going to be 2%, right? If this is 1%, the next day there's going to be 2%, 1 plus 1 is 2. The next day there's going to be 4%, the next day there's going to be 8%. The next day, only 4 days later, 16% of the lake is covered, then 32 and 64. 6 days later, more than half the lake's covered, and on the 7th day, it's fully covered. So if it's doubling it, if it's increasing at that rate, just getting rid of almost all of it's not enough. And finally, part D, if A percent is covered at the beginning of a day, and it's doubling every time, the formula to figuring out what percent of the lake is covered after T days is A is the starting value, and then it's going to double the next day, then double the next day, then double the next day, then double the next day. So the overall formula is A times 2 to the T power, where T is the number of days. A is the starting amount, 2 is the doubling every day, and T is the number of times it doubles, or the number of days.